Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Treadle, co-chairman of Citizens for Milford. I'm going to stick close to the script I wrote here so I don't use your time and you have most of your time for your questions. And he's John Seaver, also co-chairman of Citizens for Milford. And on behalf of all our CFM volunteers, we welcome you here tonight, voters and candidates alike. Thank you for participating from all of our citizens. Citizens for Milford is proud to be hosting our 4th annual Candidates Forum. We're honored to have the Milford Town Crier as our co-sponsor, and Milford TV here, where is he? Right back there, Milford TV, recording this important community event. And when is it going to be televised?
It'll be up this weekend.
This weekend. So you can see yourself on TV this weekend. So, just to remind you, Citizens for Milford is a volunteer, nonpartisan, grassroots organization. And I can tell you it's nonpartisan, right, John?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, we're always at each other. Our membership includes a very diverse group of citizens who work together on issues and projects and events, all for the benefit of Milford. We invite everyone to join us on Saturday, April 29th for our 3rd annual Milford Beautification Day. That means we all get together in the parking lot across the street from Sacred Heart Church, and we pick up trash. Meet us anytime between 9 and 1 at that parking lot to pick up your gloves, trash bags, and assignments. And having a lot of fun, too. It's a great community gathering. So you can find more information about all of our meetings and projects on our website, citizensformilford.com. Real easy to remember. So the purpose of this Candidates Forum is to enable Milford voters to hear directly from the candidates and ask questions in a fair and balanced manner, face to face. Now, simply stated, you get to ask your questions as if they were sitting in your living room.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Seaver, co-chair of Citizens for Milford, and I would like to briefly just go over the ground rules for tonight's forum. So tonight we will hear from all of the Milford candidates in Milford's 5 contested races. As we announce each race, we will ask that the candidates come up on stage and join us at this table. We will start with Constable, and then we will move to Board of Assessor, then we will move to Planning Board, and then finally we will move to the 2 different Board of Selectmen races. Let's see. The candidates themselves will have 2 minutes each to make an opening statement. After the opening statements, we will move to citizen participation, where everyone is invited to ask questions. We have allotted 10 minutes each for the first 3 races and 30 minutes each for the both Board of Selectmen races. We will be using a color-coded system to keep candidates on time. Green means that you can continue.
Turn around and take a look.
You can turn around. Green means you can continue.
Candidates are going to see. Jeff, can you flip it?
Yellow is your time is almost up, and green and red means you are out of time. So please limit your questions to 30 seconds. Candidates, you have 1 minute each to respond to each question. Questions can be directed at a particular candidate or to all candidates. And finally, please be considerate when stating questions, avoid personal attacks, and we reserve the right to dismiss inappropriate questions. So, I would like to ask at this time candidates for Milford Constable to come up on the stage. There's Nadine Ladeau and Rob Sheedy. There is a 3rd candidate, Scott Vecchiola, who's also running for this seat, and he's unable to attend. Nadine, why don't you come to the podium first and you could start. You might as well just get it over with. She's a little nervous, but she'll be fine.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I'm
Hold
Lee
the
Ledoux.
microphone up
Yeah.
so they-
I'm running for Constable, a
Put it right up near your mouth.
I'm a longtime resident of Milford, graduate of Milford High. I've earned associate's degree in criminal justice. I've worked as a police matron for 6 years. I'm currently employed as a crossing guard. I have a total of 8 years' experience, but I took a break to take care of my younger children, and I returned this year. I have experience working with the public and dealing with confrontation and how to successfully diffuse a situation. I feel this is a wonderful opportunity for me to continue to work with the public and continue to work in a field that I love. I'm confident with my experience and willingness to learn, I would be very successful representing the town of Milford as the elected constable. It's my understanding that this position I'm seeking was held for many years by the late Barbara Clement. She was the first elected woman to hold a position of constable in Milford. My heart goes out to her family and friends. Her passing is a tremendous loss to them and the community. She was strong and full of compassion, and I know it's impossible to fill her shoes. But I'd be honored to give the opportunity to serve as constable as gracefully and peacefully as she did. Thanks.
Hello, good evening. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening to meet everybody. I'd also like to thank the citizens of Milford for hosting this evening. My name is Robert Sheedy, and I'm running for Constable. A little bit about myself, for those of you who don't know me. I lived in Milford my whole entire life. My parents were Bob Sheedy. He used to work for the town of Milford as a foreman down the highway department. My mother was Roseanne Semino. She was in the school department as a teacher's aide in the old Spruce Street school building, if anybody remembers that. I got 2 sons. RJ, he's got a talk show here in Milford, and Matthew, he's finishing up high school this year. Myself, I've been working for Stop and Shop for the past 32 years. Started out as a sophomore in high school. I got full-time right after graduation. I've been working there ever since as a produce manager in a Natick store. Along with that, I also worked in the Milford Fire Department on the call department. I joined that department in the late 90s, and the department, due to budget cuts, was dismantled in the early 2000s. If it wasn't for that, I would still be on the department. I love Milford. I was born here, raised here, went to school here. My family's from here. I would just like to serve the town again. There's no other better way to serve it than being constable. Looking for your vote on April 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Nadine. So at this time, we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. Anybody that has a question, just raise your hand. We'll come over with the microphone and just tell us your name and then ask the question. Okay. Any questions? Question right over here.
Hi, I'm Donna Nero, Precinct 8, and I'm not sure what a constable does. I know some of the responsibilities, but can you describe the role and responsibilities of a constable and tell us why you're interested in the position, please?
Constables, they're a processor. They serve papers, eviction notices, divorce papers, subpoenas, summons, any papers like that they'll be serving is what I've been told. They've reached out to the 4 other constables in town. They all told me it's an entry-level position, easy to learn. They'll be showing me the ropes if I was to be elected for it. I just feel confident doing it. I'd like to be a part of Milford once again.
Okay, any other questions for the constable? We've got it right over here. Please just stand and tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Linda Catanzariti, and I think you've answered this question, but have either of you served in the role of constable at all? No, neither of you have. Okay. What personal and professional experience do you have that would benefit you in the position of constable?
I have a criminal justice background, and I have I worked at the police station as a police matron for about 6 years, and
What was the question again? Sorry.
What's your background for constable?
I have no background for being a constable, but my 32 years experience with Stop and Shop and working with the public, There's a lot of conflicts at times in the stores and everything. You got to deal with that and handle that in a professional manner. I was in the Call Fire Department. Walking up to a door, you never know what's on the other side, and you always have to be ready because it could be a dangerous job at times, and you have to be prepared.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for the constables? Other questions for the constable candidates? Is that it? Is that it? Okay, well, we'd like to thank both of the candidates.
Okay, next, we have candidates for the Board of Assessors, Joshua Leoch and Charles Scaff. Did I pronounce that right, Charles? Please come up here. So, would you like to start initially with your statement?
Prepared a few words. Good evening, everyone. I'll try to do this within the 2 minutes. Is everybody having fun yet? First, I'd like to thank the citizens from Milford for hosting tonight's event. Good evening. My name is Josh Leoch. I'm a lifelong Milford resident. Graduated from Milford High School in 1997. While attending college, I was also the first director of the Milford Youth Center here in town during its infancy. Fast forward a few years, I opened up my real estate office in 2003 right on Main Street in Milford. 2004, I married my beautiful wife, who couldn't be here tonight, and we have 2 beautiful children. Our daughter Ava Rose is 10 years old, and our son Nicholas Rocco is 8 years old, and they both attend Milford School. I'm a third-generation Milfordian. My grandparents, Rudolph Leoch Sr. and Madeline Paradiso, were born and raised here. They're married in 1950, and in 1955, my grandfather opened up his own business, Milford Woodworking, which my father still runs today. My father, Rudolph Leoch Jr., married his Milford High School sweetheart, Susan Berry. They built their home here in town and raised their 2 boys, Rudy Leoch III, who's here tonight, and me. Our parents taught us that our reputation and who we were as people would far outweigh anything else that we did. They instilled in us that someone of high integrity and being someone who was true to their word were the most important things, not only in business, but in life. I believe that's the type of people we need to continue to lead this town as we move into the future. I promise you I'll use the same ethical standards and beliefs on the Board of Assessors that I do in my business and my life every day. The knowledge I've gained over the past 16 years has allowed me to have a perfect background to be able to assist an already well-run assessor's office, as well as being able to have an immediate impact once I'm elected. I've spoken with several assessors' offices throughout the state where realtors are members of their Board of Assessors, and they all say the same thing. They tell me that it's a huge benefit to the town because realtors have their finger on the pulse of the marketplace and provide knowledge that someone outside of the industry couldn't do. That's the type of impact I'm honored to bring to the Milford Board of Assessors. Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for your attention, and I hope to earn your vote on April 4th. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Charlie Scaff, a resident of Milford all my life, 61 years. I've graduated from Milford High School, first class to graduate from the new high school, 1974. I've given 3/4 of my life working for the town. I retired 3.5 years ago. I worked at the school department for probably 30 years, and the last 12 or 13, I worked at the other town hall and police station, senior center, and all the other town buildings. So I'm presently on the Council on Aging as vice chairman. I served at the Vernon Grove trustee. I was chairman there for 2 years. And if I get the Board of Assessors, I'll give it 110%. Everything I do, I try to do for the public. And if there's anything I can do for anybody, I'm only a phone call away. And I'm happy to serve the town. Like I said, I've served them 3/4 of my life, and I want to continue doing that. And I thank everybody for being here. thank the citizens for inviting me.
Okay, questions for the candidates for Board of Assessors. You can direct it to both of them or to either one. It's your choice. Questions? Right here, Barbara.
Well, Charlie, I'm going to ask you this first because I already saw part of the answer of this first question. Tell me why you were interested in serving on the Board of Assessors, besides the fact that you want to service the town, but do you have any other reason?
It was an open seat. I was going to run 2 years ago. I've always wanted to run on the assessors. I own property, and I really like a change in helping people out. And I thought the assessors would be a good example, and so I could do that.
Okay. Let's see. Do you want to answer more to that?
So for me, it was a natural next step in my life. After starting my business and running a business and building that to the point that I've done, having children, being involved in their lives, starting charitable efforts through business, it's kind of a next step of what I wanted to do with getting involved in the town at a different level. So wanted to do it for quite some time and looking for the right fit. And when the Board of Assessors became an opportunity, I felt that it was a perfect fit for me based on my background and my experience. So I was excited to jump at that opportunity.
Okay. Another question. Since this position is a paid position, do both of you have the time to give the job what it needs?
I know I do. I've weighed that out. Before anything I do, I'm pretty thorough in analyzing the opportunity. For me, it was the right time based on where I was in life. My business is at a good point that I'm allowed to do a little bit more outside of the office. And so this was the opportunity for me in the sense of timing, where it was a perfect fit again. So I'm not worried about the time, the commitment. I go 100 miles an hour for those people who know me. If I'm not busy, I'm not happy. And so no matter what I'm doing, I'm going full tilt.
Charles.
Being retired, I got all day, and I have plenty of time. I'm down the town hall, and I'm down the senior center now, volunteering down there, just to pass the time, give me something to do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Jim was get the microphone.
Can I just ask my question first? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. This is for Joshua. I'm just curious if you have to recuse yourself from assessing properties that you're listing.
So if there was a situation where anyone on any board is going to be in a position where they could make a financial gain, that person would have to recuse himself. So yes, that would be a situation. The very rare situation where someone's going to list their home and then file abatement is extremely rare. Did some research through the tax records the last 3 years, and there wasn't a person that wasn't even a client. So I'm not worried about that, although I did weigh that out, so I appreciate the question. But yes, if any person on any board in any position is in a position where they could have a financial gain, they would have to recuse themselves.
Okay, right over here.
Your question was just asked.
Okay. Over here.
Smart man.
Yes, Charles, you just said you would like to be able to help people out. I don't know what that means. I mean, how do you help people out in that position?
Anybody has a tax problem with their house or anything like that, or their vehicle excise tax, assessor also takes care of that, excise taxes on your motor vehicles. Tax abatements, they have Milford has the seniors has a program that they can work so many hours and get a tax rebate.
Other questions?
One more. Is that a full-time position?
No, it's they meet as needed, usually a couple times a month.
Oh, back here. Okay.
I'm wondering, do either of you see any particular challenges that you would be expecting to deal with, either looking forward to or just intrigued by in this job?
Well, my answer would be no. There's really not any challenges that we would be facing currently, but just excited to get involved and to learn more about the board itself. That's probably the biggest challenge.
I have to agree with Josh. I have been reading up a lot more on the assessors. I've been on the computer. They have an online test, and I've been quizzing myself on that. So I'm a lot more knowledgeable than I was a few years ago.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Good job.
At this time, I'd like to ask the candidates for the planning board to come up. We have John Cook, who's the incumbent, and he's being challenged by Mike Visconti, and it's a 5-year seat. Mike, why don't you come right up here and take the podium with your opening statement. Would you grab that mic there?
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, folks. My name is Mike Visconti. I live here in Milford at 7 Muriel Lane. I am running for planning board because I have 45 years experience in planning, design, engineering, and construction. I specialized in analyzing traffic flow patterns around sites, placement of buildings on sites, to not only satisfy the occupants' needs, but to also satisfy the neighborhood's needs. I am very familiar with and are fairly well versed in Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81, which is the law that governs the procedures and operation of local planning boards. I've been a town meeting member for in excess of 45 years. I have not missed one meeting. I consulted with UMass in 2003 in developing Milford's comprehensive plan, and I believe that we need to take advantage of suggestions in that plan with future development in Milford. I have an unlimited Massachusetts construction license, which I've held for many years. I previously held a Massachusetts gas fitters license. I really never used the gas fitters license, but it was something that I saw out there, and I worked hard to get the license, just because I wanted to have one. I was also previously held a Massachusetts lead paint abatement license, which I also have given up because I really was not using the license. I know that I know that I will be a very vocal member of the planning board, and I think those of you who know me can attest to my vocalism. I don't expect, I'm a realist. I don't expect that the other members will go along with all the positions I take, but my plan is to, by vocalizing my position, to encourage
wrap it up, Mike.
intelligent debate.
Mike, let's wrap it up. You're past your time.
Well, thank you. I'll wait for questions.
John, you can take the podium for your opening statement.
I'm surprised he went over his time. My name is John Cook. I'm a present member of the Planning Board. I'm running for re-election because I really enjoy working on that board. I've been a member of the Planning Board since 1989. I was actually sponsored by the selectmen and planning board members. They asked me to join. I replaced Joe Cheramicoli. I don't know if anybody remembers Joe. I've been a town meeting member for 40-plus years as well, as long as he has. I got locally, I've been a Little League coach, Pop Warner coach. I co-founded the Milford Hockey League. It's now Pins, if you don't know the place. They still have everything under the floor, so they could convert back anytime, what I understand. I've been on the Firehouse Building Committee, the latest one. Elementary School Building Committee for Woodland and Brookside. I've been on both of those committees, and we saw that through. After that was the firehouse with Birch Street. At Milford Hospital, I'm on the PFAC, which is Patient Family Advisory Council. I was on that for 3 years and chaired for 3 years. That was very interesting. My work experience, I worked in Draper, and I always say if that was still open, I'd probably still be there. It was so close, it was right downhill. Data General, digital, FDIC, back to digital, all in high tech. I was in the computer area, writing programs, and then I became a manager of some programming people. That was very exciting. I really enjoy the group. Thank you very much for inviting us. It's been very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay, let's open it up to citizen participation. Does anybody have questions for the planning board candidates? I've got a question right over here.
Hi, Linda Catanzariti. The most recent comprehensive plan for Milford, which is available on the town website, was created nearly 15 years ago. Can both of you please answer the following questions about the Milford Comprehensive Plan? Have you read the plan, first of all?
I have studied the plan pretty much in depth, and as I said, I was involved in consulting with UMass in developing the plan. There are, even though the plan was done in '03, a lot of the issues pointed out in the plan are very relative still today. For example, and I won't go through all of them, it was indicated in the plan that we absolutely need to do something in this town to conserve open space. Since that plan was developed in '03, we have done little to preserve in perpetuity any open space. The plan also indicated that if we want to attract businesses back to our downtown area, we absolutely need to do something with the hodgepodge of signage that is allowed on our main street. They suggested a zone, a specific zone, be established with specific sign criteria. We cannot expect Main Street to be what it was in the past if we do nothing and just let it die away.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Your time is up.
Thank you, Mike. I'm somewhat familiar with the plan, but not in depth. I haven't really studied it that much, actually. We haven't spoken an awful lot about it at our meetings. We just concern ourselves with building and things of that nature. For example, we have two 5-story buildings coming down on 16, going to have somewhere around 300 apartments in it. But we don't have the infrastructure for it. We don't have the water supply. We don't have the traffic. And it's going to be very difficult. That's about it. Okay.
Other questions for the planning board candidates? We've got a question right here, and then we'll head back there. Want to bring him the microphone? Not that he needs it.
I am Tom Russell, Precinct 2. Question for Mike. I would like to hear your thoughts on the 40B that's being looked at right now? Thank you.
Let me start by saying I am not a big fan of the 40B law. I have never been. However, it is in place and we need to comply. We fall into a category of towns that are below the required percentage of affordable housing, and therefore we must comply. Now, there are things that we can do to make the 40B developments less impactful to the town, and those are things that should be considered when the 40B comes before the zoning board. I have sat on 2 zoning board hearings, actually 3 zoning board hearings regarding 40B developments, and I have made suggestions for conditions to be placed on those approvals that have made those developments less impactful in a degradatory way to Milford. And I would expect that when this 40B actually comes to the zoning board, the same would be done. I will be there at those meetings, and I will be vocal at those meetings, whether I am elected to the planning board or not, looking out for, as best I can, the best interests of this town, even though there really is not too much we can do.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
As Mike mentioned, 40Bs are usually handled by the zoning board, not the planning board. They're the ones that make the last decision whether it's okay for them to construct or do what they're doing with the 40B. Like that complex is coming down in 16 that I mentioned, 300 units. That's going to be a 40B. So the zoning board will be handling all of that, not the planning.
Okay. Other questions? We've got gentleman back here.
Hi, my name is George Swimer. I'm in Precinct 7. I have a question about what you think the major role of the planning board is. Do you view the planning board as an advocate for development or an adversary of development? And in so doing that balance, in the back of my mind, I watch you guys hoping that you're always protecting Milford from sort of construction that otherwise is not either meeting the planning board criteria or you can't stop it, it's happening, then what do you do? Kind of stuff. For example, I mentioned earlier in a private meeting, the construction of a home in a relatively small lot on Highland Street. How did that happen? How is it that a house that looks like it was just stuck on this small lot, how did that occur?
I was the person to whom George was talking about the house on Highland Street. And actually, I don't know how it got there. Do you have to have frontage? Obviously, that doesn't have any frontage unless they count the driveway. And that'd be all of it. You've got to have at least on Highland Street, I believe it's 100 feet. So they didn't have the real frontage. It just got built, let's put it that way. I'm an advocate of actually sound building. Conscious, if you're conscious about it, you have to build something that fits the neighborhood and fits the square yardage of your property. That's the idea. And you have to be able, like the one that's, once again, the 300 units, you got to have enough to supply with water, electricity, sewerage, the whole bag. And I don't think there's any sewerage down there either. So that'll be very difficult to do. Thank you.
The house on Highland Street, like many other properties in town, is what's called a pre-existing non-conforming lot. And whenever a house is either destroyed or reduced in value by a fire by 75% of its value, then in order to build a house there again, you need to go to the zoning board of appeals for a special permit to build the house back on that lot. Now, I was not involved. Recently, the zoning board of appeals issued a special permit to rebuild on that lot with the understanding that the setbacks will be adhered to. My guess is from experience that the builders will be back before the zoning board of appeals looking for relief from the setbacks because the lot is so small. If that lot, the house just didn't get built there, when it was built there, it predated any kind of zoning bylaws we had in this town, like a lot of houses in this town.
Okay,
So-
thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, other questions? Marie has a question up here, Amy?
Hadn't planned on it, but it's interesting. Mr. Cook, does not the planning board make recommendations to the zoning board so that if you saw that a plan may be harmful to the community, that you would, in advisory capacity, notify the zoning board?
Yes, that's true. We do make recommendations, but they don't have to accept our recommendations.
Oh, thank
For
you.
example, one beauty is the Kmart parking lot with those signs that are 100 feet up. That's not in our bylaw. We told them we didn't want that. You got to stick to the plans that we have in town. And they just overlooked it and said, go ahead, build a sign.
A quick drive through areas of Milford, and I would agree with one of the previous speakers, that homes appear to be being built on undersized lots. So perhaps it's time that there's a committee, that the planning board name a committee to work with the Board of Assessors office to find out just how many undersized lots there are, and to do something about that, because people who have built beautiful homes are now finding they got company in between their neighbor's home and their own.
Well, once again, Marie, there's a lot of pre-existing zoning that's sitting out there that has to be changed. There are areas of town where the square footage that they built before is still there. So technically, if somebody takes a house down or whatever, or if there's a piece of property that's the right size, then they can use it. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but that's what.
Thank you. Other questions? Other questions? We've got a question over
With
here.
all due respect, appearances can be deceiving. You say houses are being built on undersized lots. We don't know that that's the case. In order to get a permit to build a house, the permit would have to be issued from the building department, and it's the building department's responsibility to make certain that those lots comply with a number of things: square footage, frontage, width, and shape. If they don't, then the recourse is with the zoning board of appeals, not with the planning board. So some of those lots, while they appear to be undersized, they do conform.
Thank you, Mike. Other questions? I think we've got a question here.
Hi, Donna Nero. So our new sign bylaw restricts the use of sandwich boards and other temporary signs, yet there are many displays of those types of signs around town. What is your opinion on how the bylaw is being enforced?
The planning board held public hearings on the new sign bylaw before it went to town meeting for a vote. The public hearings were very poorly attended by the citizens of Milford. I was there, I know. I commented on several parts of the new sign bylaw that I felt were probably not going to be in the best interest of the town. The planning board spent an inordinate amount of time reviewing that sign bylaw before they felt comfortable in giving it a favorable recommendation at town meeting. Town meeting did vote to approve that new sign bylaw. However, I do feel that, with all due respect to town meeting members, most of them had no idea what they were voting on when they approved that sign bylaw, and basically just went on the planning board's recommendation. So what you have now is a sign bylaw that is, at best, extremely confusing, not only for the citizens of the town, but also for the enforcers of the sign bylaw.
Thank you, Mike.
It may be confusing to you, Mike, but most other people understand it. The people who are designed it do that side of business, that kind of business. The people who enforce it are enforcing it to the best of their ability at the present time.
Thank you. Other questions? We have another question here.
As a follow-up to that, John, though, how is it being enforced? For example, there's a sandwich board right in front of the Milford Youth Center, which is very close to Town Hall. And who's responsible for enforcing it?
Any sandwich board is not allowed under our new sign bylaw. And if I would appeal to you to notify the building department and have the zoning enforcement office enforce the sign bylaw as it relates to that particular situation or any others. You may have noticed that we still have many signs attached to utility poles and on street signs, all violations of our sign bylaw. Now, in defense of the building department, they have an awful lot of work to do, a lot of violations that they need to take care of. So I'm sure they're doing the best they can to enforce the sign bylaw. If you happen to see a violation, please report it to the zoning officer or the building commissioner, and they will take care of it as soon as they can, I'm certain. I don't want to speak for them, but I'm certain they will take care of it. Okay. But be assured, I know the new sign bylaw, inside, outside, up and down.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Okay, we have another question over here.
Just to follow up with the sign issue, do you think Milford has a bigger issue than signs, or is it signs the predominant issue in the town?
Signs are a problem in every town, actually. Milford's sign bylaw is such now that it should be enforced a little heavier, probably. The signs that I'm kind of upset about or kind of crazy are the ones that says we appreciate our police department or our fire department. Those aren't covered by anything, so they can use it. Wait, Mike wants something.
In fact, those signs are a violation. Now, speaking of we support our police department. As far as I'm concerned, you don't support your police department by putting a sign in your yard. How many of you, when you have been driving down the street with maybe your children or your grandchildren in the car, have come upon a police officer and looked over to your child or grandchild and said, "See that person in that uniform? That person is our friend. Wave to that person and give him a thumbs up." You support your police department with action, not with signs. But in any case, those signs are in fact a violation and should be removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? We've got a question back there, and then we'll come to you. This lady's been waiting right there.
I confess I've never been to a planning board meeting in Milford. My name is Margaret Hannigan, by the way, Precinct 6. I want to know if I'm getting the right feel listening to you both. It sounds like a lot of the work of the planning board is very reactive rather than proactive, even though there was evidently a town plan.
In my opening address, I did refer to...
Did you finish your question, ma'am?
Yeah,
Let her finish.
I knew
my
that
apologies.
there at one point was a town plan, and I'm wondering, is this something that should be followed up on, reviewed? Is part of the purpose of the planning board actually to develop ongoing plans?
In fact, there are, as I alluded to during my opening address, I alluded to Mass General Law, Chapter 41. Now, there are, in fact, with all due respect to the planning board, there are, in fact, some compliance issues that the current planning board has with Chapter 41. My intent would be to help to bring the planning board into compliance with the Mass General laws. The law is the law. We need to comply. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take one more question for the planning board candidates, and then we're going to move on. Marie?
More of a statement. I wanted to support the idea of signs. And I'm sure when you think about it, you will too, because it's your signs around the town that are telling people who to vote for. And so I would hate to see signed, I'm very much in support of the signs that say we support the Milford Police Department. They certainly need it.
To that point, under our old sign bylaw, the political signs were
then
not
fix it.
regulated at all.
Then fix it so it is legal for us to support our police department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we got to move on. Thank you for the planning board candidates. Great discussion. And at this time, just for background, there are 2 selectmen races going on this year. The first one is for a 2-year seat that Selectman Brian Murray currently holds. And we're going to ask the candidates for that one to come up now, and then there's a second one for a full 3-year seat. So let's have the selectmen for the 2-year seat. It's Mike Walsh and Harold Rhodes that are coming up for the 2-year seat. There is a third candidate, Jessica Lebrecht, who also is a candidate, but she was unable to attend. So let's ask Harold to come up and start off with his opening statement.
So I was told at last night's debate at the town hall that
Harold, why don't you grab the microphone?
Thank you. So I was told at last night's debate that I did not smile enough, and I told my wife this, and she said, well, the problem with that is you never smile. So I'm going to do my best to smile, but if I don't, please understand. When Milford considers for whom to vote for this very important election, there are 5 areas my candidacy compares with Mike Walsh. First, and most importantly, I will be your full-time selectman. I will not have to navigate among the conflicting needs of other boards, committees, or commissions. The only focus that I will have is to be your selectman. I will not be forced to choose where to spend my time. Second, I will maintain fiscal conservatism. I will never put forth a 6% budget increase. I will never waste money. I will maintain tight financial controls, and I will certainly never support a tax override. And third, I'll bring fresh perspectives to the town of Milford. Now, many of you know that I've been a fixture at the selectmen's meetings and many other board meetings for nearly 3 years as we've pursued a number of projects, and I've had a chance to watch the selectmen through these meetings. So I see a Milford with less traffic congestion, a revitalized downtown, and a much more transparent town hall. For example, this is the perfect time to leverage the Archer Rubber and Middle School East area. And fourth, I'm well known in the Milford community to be quite diligent, and you can count on me to reliably always to follow through. And last, I have the necessary business expertise. I hold a master's degree in business administration from the Harvard Business School and 25 years of senior management experience at large and emerging high technology companies. I ask for your vote on April 4th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Harold.
First, I'd like to say thank you to Steve and John and the citizens from Milford for putting this forum on this evening. Good evening. My name is Mike Walsh, and I'm a candidate for the unexpired 2-year seat on the Board of Selectmen. Over the past several weeks, the question I perhaps have been asked most is, why are you running for the Board of Selectmen? Simply put, for the past 8 years, I've had the privilege of serving the community as a member of the school committee. In that capacity, many challenging and very important issues that have been addressed. These issues had important effects not only on our most important resources, our children, but also on the taxpayers and the citizens of our community. As each one of these issues were addressed, I, as promised, met each one head-on with an open mind, taking into consideration all the facts, evaluating those facts, to make what I considered the best possible decision for all involved. It is with that same commitment that I offer my candidacy to the citizens of Milford to represent you as one of your selectmen. As we know, many challenging and very important decisions are facing our community, and it is vital that they are addressed with an open and honest approach to best represent the taxpayers' interests. My commitment to you, the taxpayers, is to continue that approach and to assure that these issues are evaluated and addressed in an open and honest manner, and that all aspects are taken into consideration for the best possible results. This is what my candidacy represents. I would greatly appreciate your strong consideration for this important seat on April 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Harold. And now we will open it up for questions from the citizens. We've got a question right back there. Please stand up and tell us what your name. Please tell us your name.
Yes, good evening. My name is Jim O'Connor, Precinct 6. My question for the candidates is, there is a proposal to construct a natural gas pipeline that would come through Milford. The proponent is Spectra Energy, which is owned in part by National Grid and Eversource Energy. I'd like to know what your position is on the construction of this pipeline and whether or not you would support a resolution by the town concerning its construction. Thank you.
Well, of course, you bring up a very important point when outside organizations, companies come into our town and do building. We certainly should do everything we can as a community to maintain the quality of life here in Milford, and a pipeline just doesn't fit with that. So whatever we can do as a town to, dissuade that from happening, we should do. But it is a federal issue, and with the federal concern, and as well with the right-of-way that they've been given, there's little that the town can do, but we should try to do everything that we can.
So would you support a resolution?
Oh, certainly. We should do everything we possibly can do from every point of view, legal and town pressure otherwise, to do that. Absolutely. Mike?
I think one of the important things that people have to understand, or one of the important roles of a selectman, is that a selectman's responsibility in issues like this is to gather information, gather the facts, so that they can bring to you, the citizens, the information that you need to make that vote, to make that decision, whether it goes to town meeting. So I don't really think there's enough factual information in right now to make a response to that. My personal feeling, asking that question right now, would I support a resolution? Right now I would, but being truthful with you, I don't think there's enough information in on the project yet for the citizens to make an accurate decision.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions? Right here.
A question for both candidates. Harold, you were talking about fiscal conservatism, and I'd like to question you on what you feel that the Board of Selectmen has done in the past that would not be fiscally conservative, and likewise, Michael, when you're finished.
I have to answer that question saying that I think the Board of Selectmen in this town, the 30-plus years that I've been here, has always been fiscally conservative. I've seen many great projects get built. The youth center was one of them, which I was involved in. But in my tenure, on boards that I serve, I've never seen the Board of Selectmen spending money crazy. I've never seen it. So to say fiscally conservative, I think the town of Milford is fiscally conservative, and that's why, financially we're in the shape that we are. From years ago, some planning that was done on Bear Hill and things like that. But I mean, being on the school committee, being on the youth council, having many, many meetings with members of the Finance Committee, and thank God we have them. We are a fiscally conservative community.
Well, I certainly agree with Mike in one area, that our current and previous boards of selectmen have done a wonderful job at maintaining excellent financial controls throughout the community, and we are the envy of at least our area, if not the whole state, in terms of our finances. However, one difference that Mike and I do have is, many of you know, the school department just put in for its budget for next year. And it was given an outline by the Finance Committee to come in around 2.5%, maybe 3%, somewhere in that neighborhood. The school committee came through with a budget increase exceeding 6%. So you can talk about wanting to be conservative in a financial way, but it is important to act that way as well.
Yeah, Mike, you can follow up with that.
Just to be clear on that, as a member of the Milford School Committee and as chairman, the school committee has not submitted a budget at all at 6%. We haven't submitted a budget at all. We are working with the Finance Committee right now to put together a budget that will go to town meeting in May for a vote, but there is no number yet. I can tell you that we've looked at 4.9, we've looked at 4.5, we've looked at 3.2. Yes, the Finance Committee has come in and told us they want us to be at 2.5. There is no way that we can do that. So we are still in negotiations with the Finance Committee. We met on Monday night. We had a very good meeting, okay? But there is no percentage rate has been set yet on the Milford Schools budget. 6%, I don't know where that came from.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, let's get some other questions. We've got a question over here, this gentleman.
I'm just curious how...
Please tell us your name, stand up and tell us your name.
Anonymous. I'm David Levine, precinct 1, I guess. Mike, I'm curious how this works. If you are elected, are you going to remain on the school committee seat, or are you planning to step down? And Harold, I just want to say you did a great job in getting the bus route into town. Thank you.
My plan is to stay on, and I want to tell you why. When I ran for school committee and got elected, I made a commitment to the people in the town of Milford that if I got elected, I was going to run 3 terms, and I was going to serve the town for 9 years, and then I was going to walk away. I've been fortunate enough to serve 2 years back-to-back as chairman, so my plan is, if I am fortunate enough to become elected selectman, I will finish my year on the school committee. I will step off any leadership role. I am going to resign from the youth commission. That's a definite, because if I become a selectman, I'll be an appointing authority, and I can't be doing that if I'm on that board. So, yes, my plan is to stay my last year on the school committee.
And as you know, that was the very first point that I made, that I plan to be Milford's full-time selectman. I have no other responsibilities to other boards, commissions. I do serve on the Disability Commission, but only as a member. I have no leadership positions on those. And it's that kind of leadership that can bring forth the changes that we need to bring less traffic congestion to our town. That takes time and energy. To spur economic development, that takes time and energy. And to really do an improvement in the transparency of Town Hall, that takes time and energy. So being your full-time selectman will be my only job, and I look forward to doing that.
Thank you. Mike wanted to respond quickly on that, Harold.
I commented on this last night. I like this terminology, full-time selectman, but then I would say to myself, well, what about the director of finance? What about the town administrator? What about all the department heads that are in town hall that are doing a great job right now? The office of selectman should be a part-time position. We have people in town hall all day long that are doing a good job, do a great job, to be honest, in my opinion. They don't need to be micromanaged. And that's really not the role of, in my opinion, Mike Walsh's opinion, that's not the role of a selectman. Okay? You don't need to be a full-time selectman. There are people there that are paid to do their job every single day, and they're doing a good job.
Harold would like to respond, then we're going to open it back up.
I talked about fresh perspectives. The point is, we do have a wonderful team in Town Hall. They do not need to be micromanaged. We have a good organization. But in order to make improvements outside of Town Hall, to grow our community through economic development, to lead in traffic congestion, so very important. I just want to remark to the 2003 Planning Board report. If you look on a page about 112, you'll see that Mellon Street Bridge was supposed to be repaired back in 2005. We're still waiting for that to happen. We need leadership that's willing to go out into the community and make improvements for the whole community, not to micromanage our wonderful operating town hall. So that's my intent as your full-time selectman.
My name is Kim Smith, and I have a question for both candidates. What do you think are the critical issues facing our community?
My opinion, that the three biggest issues that we face as a community right now is, the first one, in my opinion, is stormwater management. And I'll speak to that. The concern that I have with that, and I'm going to use the same response that I used last night. For those of us that have been around long enough, remember when we had the epidemic where gas stations were all dirty, and all that dirt was pulled out of the ground and sent to Tonawanda, New York, for the cost of billions and billions of dollars. And then somebody decided that, why can't we put the dirt on the side of the gas station, cover it with a plastic tarp, and every so many days turn that dirt with a backhoe, because gasoline evaporates. So in my opinion, all that money was wasted. I fear the same thing is going to happen. They're going to come to the towns of Milford, Franklin, and Bellingham, and they're going to strong arm us, and that's an awful word to use, to get on board, to get into stormwater management, and then 10 years down the road, somebody's going to come up with an idea and say, geez, you really didn't have to do that. We could have done this after we spent all this money. So that really, really concerns me. The second thing that concerns me is the purchase of the Milford Water Company. The pros and the cons of both sides of that. So I'll give you
We got to go to time's up, Mike. We can pick it up later, but we got to keep to the rules. Harold, your shot.
Let me begin by saying, of course, I agree with Mike about the stormwater management issue. However, I'm much more concerned about the issues facing the quality of life here in Milford. And it's the quality of life which affects us and brings us joy to live here in our community. And the first one, I will say, and we all agree, is the awful traffic congestion wherever you are in this community. And it is just getting worse, and I don't know if there's anybody in this room who would disagree with that point, that we need to bring a solution to, or at least mitigate traffic congestion. The second one is bringing transparency to Town Hall. We need to get more people engaged. For those of us who were town meeting last year, there wasn't much engagement, so we need to find a way to get the citizenry involved. And last, economic development. We have plenty of room in this community to improve the quality of life, to bring jobs, to bring better lifestyle in downtown, and those would be the three things that I would concentrate on as your next selectman.
Thank you, Harold. Mike, like to respond?
I'd just like to follow up real quick. The second one to me would be the water company. I have a very serious concern. The plant, as everybody knows, is fairly new. That's not what bothers me. What bothers me is the infrastructure. And even though they're going to set up an enterprise fund, how long is it going to take for that enterprise to get funded? And I look and I say, well, why would we want to take something out of the private sector and put it into the municipal sector and put that burden on the taxpayers of the town? Now, again, there's pros and cons. Something goes wrong with your water, as a taxpayer, you always have your selectmen to lean on instead of a private entity. But I think that's something that we really, really need to look at. And then the other one is something I'm involved in, Middle School East. What are we going to do with that building? And I think the town really needs to look at that. So thank you.
Go to Harold.
This is another area that Mike and I disagree with regard to the water company. although I'm not been privy to the actual numbers, I can only speak about it in its purpose. The concept of a privately owned water company in our area is so dissimilar to nearly 97% of the other communities in Massachusetts. By we own the infrastructure. Let's face it, we own it. If there's something that goes wrong with the infrastructure, it gets put back to us in part of the rate with their markup and the construction fees. So it doesn't really matter. The advantage of owning it is we get to control the rate itself. We can pick among many different vendors to do the construction, and we don't have to get a profit. So for all those reasons, we can expect the rates to be held much more conservatively than if we continue under our current ownership organization.
Okay, Mike, you'd like to respond, and then we'll get back to some questions.
Harold brings up a great point when he said that the rates will be controlled and they'll be controlled at a lower rate. That's a great point, and that's why the enterprise fund at the sewer department still, if something was to happen, probably would not be able to handle the payment, because the fees at the sewer department have been kept so long for so many years, because that's how the enterprise gets funded. They raise the rates, okay, to fund the enterprise fund, so like a savings account, so that when something happens, that's where that money comes from. So there is money in the enterprise fund, but if you do the research, it's not what it's supposed to be, because the rates have always been kept low for the taxpayers.
Okay. Questions? Other questions? We've got a question right back here.
Is our town making the assumption that based on the statewide vote, we want pot shops in our town? I guess my question is, are we going to be reactive instead of proactive? And do we want our town to be considered the pot shop destination for the area?
Okay, Mike, why don't you take that?
I'm going to answer that question the same way I answered it last night when I got asked it. I would totally be against it. I don't think it belongs here. I don't think it's good for any community. And some people are going to hang their hats on the medical side of it. And I'm going to tell you a true story only because I'm dealing with something at Dana-Farber right now. I was there one day and the doctor said to my wife, just ask half of my patients. They're on it. Well, that's a real problem to me. I know that they're sick and I know they have issues, but that's not, in my opinion, and I'm not an MD, that's not the way to correct it. So I would be against it, and that's the same stance I took last evening.
Beverly, I'll be brief. Ditto.
Thank you. Okay, well, I want to thank both candidates, Harold and Mike Walsh, for great responses.
Okay, our final presentation this evening is the Board of Selectmen 3-year seat. And we're going to call candidates Bill Buckley, the incumbent, and John Erickson to make their presentations. John, would you like to go first?
Good evening. I'd like to thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank the Citizens of Milford for hosting this event. I'm John Erickson. I currently serve as your building commissioner and a member of your school committee. I'm here tonight because I've been disappointed with a number of decisions made by the current Board of Selectmen. Decisions I have not agreed with, but I'm not here to focus on those decisions or discuss the past. I'm here tonight to discuss what I have to offer to help Milford move forward, working together as a community. I feel that my 14 years of municipal experience, combined with many years of being a small business owner and a few years as being an elected official, provide me with a unique understanding and perspective of what the role of selectmen is all about. I believe I have the ability, and I've demonstrated this ability, to collaborate with various town boards, town officials, to enable and to effect good government. Again, my town hall experience has given me invaluable insight into the role that the selectman serves, to see the true needs of the town, town departments, and on what areas a selectman needs to focus on, and to know when to rely on the true professionals that are employed by this town. All this in an effort to make decisions that will be for the greater good of the town of Milford and our residents moving forward. Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you and good evening. I first want to thank the citizens for Milford for putting on this event and giving us an opportunity to meet with the residents and answer their questions. In my time in public service, I participated and led in many areas of government. None of those successes came easy, and none of those successes came by accident. It most certainly required collaboration with a great many individuals, employees, and more specifically, I want to call out the volunteers because they've been mentioned here this evening. We owe them a great debt of gratitude for their involvement. As for me, first and foremost, I've been married for 34 years to my wife, Jill. So I'm a father of two, Taryn and Travis, and a grandfather of two, Corey and Grady. Many of you might know me from volunteer coaching, member of the playground committee to build a playground at the preschool, as a volunteer in 2 school councils, member of the Milford School Committee, co-chair of the school's long-range educational plan, which you see in effect today, member of the Woodland School Building Committee, and member and 3-time chairman of the Milford Board of Selectmen. During those years, we've had successes and we've had challenges, but I feel personally gratified by negotiating $18 million, from $18 million when the casinos first came in to $32 million, just by simply saying, I want Everett money. We've met in Boston with federal and state representatives regarding EPA and stormwater regulations. Personally, successfully blocked an effort to relinquish control of town forests and Louisa Lake to a group in Beverly called Trustees for Reservation. I was not in favor of that, I want to be clear of that. And forged new relationships with the governor's office through community compact grants. Recently, Lieutenant Governor Polito came out and awarded us that grant and brought us into that community. That's all I have, and I welcome questions from the audience. I hope we get a great deal in before this ends.
Questions from the audience, please. Here in the front, we have one. Let me take the back one first. Okay.
My question is very quick. John, you're currently involved in many, many things outside of your service to the community. If you were elected, you would have an extremely full plate, in my opinion. You'd be selectman, you'd be the commission board, the commission board, you'd be on the school committee. Do you intend to keep all these jobs, or are you going to relinquish some of them to focus your attention on the selectman duties?
Yeah. Thank you, George, for the question. What I would be involved in, currently I serve in my day job as the building commissioner, which is my full-time employment, and I own a small business, and I serve on the school committee. If I were to be elected as the next selectman for the town of Milford, I would relinquish my position on the school committee, maintain my full-time employment as the building commissioner initially, and the family business is just always going to be a part of my life.
Kim?
My name is Kim Smith. The question is for both candidates. The school committee has said that they will not be using Middle School East, and so I'm wondering what each of you think you might want to do with that property.
Bill?
Yes, I was fortunate enough to be part of a study committee. I think you know the person who chaired that committee, as a matter of fact. We had an opportunity to look at a great deal of options, and some of those options were explored and dropped. There are things like assisted living that, when you're thinking out of the box and think about ideas that might be beneficial, there were a host of things that were explored and not deemed feasible. I know that people here tonight from, I think even the school department will say that there's school department use for that, but yet they voted to make it surplus. The fact of the matter remains that that building is very expensive. That building would be very expensive to bring up to code. It would be very expensive to utilize. It's not air conditioned in the summer. It's, for those of you who remember ever going in that building in the summer, it's a hot box. So there's some things that need to be done, but I think right now, I think it's a matter of getting that committee back together, a bunch of thoughtful folks, and seeing what it is that we can do in moving forward and getting community input to that.
Yeah, is this on? Thank you. I disagree in large part with Mr. Buckley. The reuse committee did an extensive job of researching the possible future uses of that building. They came back with not many viable options, one of them being a possible combination of municipal and school administration use, which I think is still a viable option, but not in its current configuration. It would either need to be rebuilt or perhaps the 1960 addition removed and the original 1920 structure renovated. And if that doesn't become a viable option, we either have to look at knocking it down or going through with the RFP process and putting it out to bid for an offer from a private party. I think those are our three options with Middle School East.
In front here. Marie?
Sorry, I can't get up. I have a broken leg.
Out there. Yeah. I'm sorry. Right there.
So I have a question. Usually when candidates talk, they talk about the very upcoming plans that they see that the community is facing. But I'm a young person, and I also see that I would like to know what both candidates have in mind, not just short term, but long term, if they stay in the position for our town.
That's a great question, and I thank you for asking that. It takes long-range planning, and it's been part of what I've been doing for a very long time. Some of the things that we see coming to fruition today are a result of years of effort that most of us have put in. So I think what you're talking about are things like economic development. I think what you're talking about are re-looking at traffic plans and patterns. I think some of the things that may be of benefit to my grandchildren, because we know what it took to have the state come in and help with some of our sinking of lights, and even that we lost a great deal when that happened in terms of parking and some of the dedicated right turns and lefts. Those are the types of things I think about. What are our future needs for next generation? How would boutique businesses benefit? When we talked to the Secretary of Economic Development, he cautioned us to say 25 years ago, big box stores were taking out main streets, wiping them out of their retail business. Now he's talking about the internet, wiping out big box stores. Those are the things we have to be mindful of and plan for. New technology, disruptive technology, before we can go make a plan that we think will be successful for our grandchildren and for you, frankly.
John?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think long-range planning is vital to this community. Some of our previous speakers referenced the 2003 comprehensive plan that the planning board developed with the assistance of some consultants. I think a lot of aspects and opportunities in that plan were left on the table. They were met with opposition, such as the alternate route that was proposed at one point in time to alleviate the traffic, some of the improved parking in the downtown areas that were again, met with opposition or were not embraced. When I look at the number of good ideas that develops from the planning and engineering department and are not embraced by our leadership, I realize how much we're leaving on the table. I think some of the great projects that we have accomplished in recent years have also been met with some opposition. These are the fields, the armory, the senior center, but through good planning and getting the approval of and the buy-in from our residents and voters and town meeting members, these projects have been accomplished.
Right in front here, please.
That microphone.
The mic is up as far as it goes.
Hi, I'm Rosemary. So my question is, every election cycle candidates state that their support for revitalizing downtown, yet not much has been done. For example, many of the storefronts and their windows display are simply unattractive. What is your opinion of Milford's downtown area? And what steps would you take to make Main Street more appealing to Milford residents and future businesses?
John?
Yeah, thank you. I know it's a common view that downtown is unsightly with a lot of the signage in the storefront windows. But the unfortunate aspect of that is there really is nothing that we can do to control that. On a high-level planning aspect with some new legislation, we could control it, but it's too complex to talk about in the next minute or so. When I referred to opportunities that were left on the table in recent years, one of them was to promote residential use in the uppermost floors of downtown buildings, to give the building owners opportunities for increased revenue, to give them money to invest in their buildings from this revenue. And these downtown residential uses would be up to today's building codes, fire codes, accessibility codes. It's not just a building that they could put a kitchen in, call it a bedroom, a kitchen, and a family room and start using it. They would be high standard housing units. That's just, one opportunity that has been ignored or hasn't been embraced, and it's something that I would support.
Oh.
There's so many things to go through in your question. It's deep, and so I want to give it the time it requires. I think that, one person's unsightly is another person's beauty. So I don't want to praise everything, and nor do I want to challenge everything that happens on Main Street or call it neglected. There's a great many good things happening on Main Street, and part of that is more a result. I can't see, so part of it is a result of the economy itself. Over the last 8 or so years, there just hasn't been money for people to make investment. So that's been part of the challenge. We're not going to spur economic development just by throwing money at it in an economy that was very weak and soft. But we have seen some things. We look at Leoch property. We look at a beautiful new salon that went downtown on downtown Main Street. We look at what Dominic Afonso has put up in the Afonso building and Manhattan building. I think there's been a great amount of investment. I think the opportunity is possibly with TIFs, or at least creation of economic opportunity zones where we can utilize state funds and state grants to revitalize. But they're very selective about what they choose today because they see a lot of main streets failing, and they see a lot of people trying to throw money at the problem. Just as an example, the housing over Main Street was rejected by town meeting. And while some people might be in favor of it, it'd have to be reconfigured before that came back to town meeting, I think, and was accepted.
Question back here.
Yes, John. I'm struggling with how can a town employee paid by the town be unbiased when it comes to making decisions financially, department payrolls and everything. Can you help me with how that's not a conflict?
Yes, thank you. That's a question I've answered several times to date. It's really a pretty simple answer. The ethics laws have a selectman's exemption to allow a candidate to serve as an elected official while holding a full-time town position. In my particular case, I answer to the Board of Selectmen as the building commissioner. If I were elected as selectman, I'd answer to a board of 2 rather than 3. Along with that selectman exemption is a condition that someone serving dual roles can only accept one salary, the building commissioner salary or the selectman stipend. In this case, there's a drastic difference. Naturally, my selection would be the building commissioner salary. In addition to that, there's very few real conflicts. I certainly couldn't vote on anything that affects me financially, but it's no different than members of many other boards who have family in the school district, family on the police department, businesses that they work for that are involved in, a town bid that have to recuse themselves from certain situations.
Bill?
Yeah, you appear to have asked the question that's the elephant in the room, and I think it's a question I've been asked a great deal when I've been knocking on doors, and I know John says he's been asked, last night he said he's been asked that question a great deal. Actually, our bylaws prohibit policemen from running for selectmen so that they don't become the boss of their boss. Our teachers are prevented from running for school committee so that they cannot be the boss of the superintendent and also be the subordinate. I want to address this in a tactful way because I want to make sure it doesn't feel like it's an attack. But last night John spoke in circles about the challenges. The challenges are enormous. It may be legal, but the question for the voters is it right? Should an employee run for office allowing them to be their own boss? Should they vote on liquor license or restaurant licenses where they've done the work as an electrical contractor? Should they sit on the same board and do performance reviews for the town administrator when in fact they're being evaluated by the town administrator themselves? This is tricky stuff and it's incredibly hard. For example, even if Mr. Erickson were to attend a meeting during the day in which it was Board of Selectmen business, he would be subject to fines if he were on the clock working as and paid as a building inspector. These laws are intended to help employees, but they're also intended to help taxpayers as well, to make sure that there aren't conflicts, and I'll tell you it's a minefield. The person that spoke to me about it said very simply, if your Board of Selectmen member is also a building inspector, is also a school committee member, is also an inspector in Mendon, and is also an electrical contractor, that is a minefield. You might as well have them have the Ethics Commission on speed dial.
John?
So I have to answer just a few of those allegations. First of all, my advice came from the Ethics Commission. I have it in writing. I'll be willing to share it with any of you at any time. When you make allegations that I may be participating as a selectman during the daytime hours, it's the same as if I have a school committee commitment during my daytime hours. I take a vacation day. It's really that simple. This just appears to be someone trying to run interference to try and make excuses on why I can't do the job, the justice that this town needs to serve as an unbiased selectman. I would be glad to discuss with any of you at any time at great length all of these issues that are alleged here, and it just seems to me like somebody running interference at this point.
Next, over here.
There's a lot of 2-to-1 votes that goes on. Some of it because, quite frankly, because two people get together and they want to vote together regardless of the issue. So my question is, what's your idea or thoughts of opening it up to a 5-committee membership?
Could you clarify that?
Well, there's 3 of these now, make you 5, and go to town meeting. I don't know how it works, but what's your thoughts on having a 5-member board of selectmen going forward to alleviate all these 2-to-1 votes and try to separate the friendships?
Well, this is another question I've been asked in the past in a public forum, and I'd be in favor of a 5-member board of selectmen. As we've seen in the past on a number of occasions, Having a board of 3 where a 2-to-1 vote is successful doesn't lend enough diversity of opinion or independent thinking to the Board of Selectmen.
Bill?
I'm not sure what the right number is, but I think the 2-to-1 votes that over the last couple of years have probably been about 5. The majority of them have been mostly unanimous. But I am not opposed at all to a 5-member board, and if we think we can bring more people in, I'm not sure which 2-to-1 votes you're talking about. I know as a minority member for 10 years, I sat there through quite a few 2-to-1 votes. But we had good government. So, when we talk about where we are with our infrastructure, where we are with our fiscal stability, we did that with a 3-man board. But, I think getting a town meeting study committee together to see if 5 members is more representative and, might better represent the community at large, I'd be happy to study that. I think it's a great idea. We ought to look at things like that periodically anyway, frankly.
Next question in the back, Beverly.
I just want to ask you to comment on my previous question to about the legalization of marijuana and the July 18, 2018 deadline for opening retail shops throughout the state, and why our community has not been more proactive along with all the communities that are surrounding us so that we don't end up being the destination for marijuana sales.
Well, I can tell you, I know you didn't ask me this question, but I can tell you I voted against it. And you're right, the numbers you cited are very good, and that it passed by a very small margin. There's another vote that hasn't been taken, and I think it needs to be taken in Milford. I think the stopgap measure that you saw us do with planning said, hey, look, we want to, if it comes, and we know that there are state delays, we know the legislators are looking at retooling that whole referendum law. It isn't even clear to me what's going to come out of committees yet. But I will tell you this, I think the town of Milford is entitled to a referendum where they get to say, hey, we voted for this, but the question is, should it be in our backyard? Should it be even an industrial zone? Should it be within our town confines at all? I think the voters are entitled to make that decision. And just like in Colorado, where the pot legalization has gone over for a number of years, 70% of those communities don't participate. So I think we should have that vote, just to let you know. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, thank you. I also would be in favor of a referendum, but we have to understand that as it is now, a medical marijuana sales that's not medicinal marijuana is not an allowable use in our zoning bylaw. So, in effect, we have to have a town meeting approval. We have to have a proposed zoning amendment that gains town meeting approval to even have these pot shops in Milford. So the voters are going to have another say on whether or not we get it, and rightfully so.
Next question. Donna, do you have your hand up? No, okay. Right here?
To that end, would you be willing to support a moratorium in the meantime rather than just zoning, where we were completely protected until it was legal, until it was, we were allowed to open stores in the state? A moratorium as opposed to zoning, because it would be a more protective measure in terms of keeping us from people coming in and trying to set up, zoning sites, that kind of thing.
Well, regardless of the margin, I can tell you today that the Milford voters and the state voters voted for legalizing pot and marijuana sales, retail sales. So I want to first and foremost say it's my obligation to listen to the voters and to abide by the state laws and the referendums that come by. I'm okay with taking the vote to the voters. I don't think we need to jump for moratoriums. There's plenty of time, and I think we can have a referendum just as easy as we can discuss moratoriums. So I'd rather go to the final step and let the voters decide. there may be a lot of voters out there that say, hey, I'm for retail sales of marijuana. I just not sure I want it in my community. I'll go to Medway or I'll go to another community, but I don't know that I want it in my community. I think that's where some of that number would fall off, and you might not see the large representation or 50-some% that would be in favor of it once they found out it was in their backyard. I'm not sure, though. The only way to tell that is to have the vote.
John?
Yeah, I guess I'm not quite sure of the question, only in the sense that we effectively have a moratorium until and unless town meeting approves the zoning change. So are you saying, explain the moratorium proposal?
I guess what I'm saying is that it would protect us from someone coming in with a site plan and just putting some measure out there that then forces the zoning board to look at this more closely. Other towns are doing moratoriums where it's completely protecting them for the time being, so that they've got time to look at their options and consider what they could do. And in the meantime, giving people time, signature collections, that kind of thing, to set up to trigger a referendum.
I guess I would say I would not support that moratorium because, again, effectively we have a moratorium unless the zoning change passes town meeting. When somebody comes in for a site plan review, it would be for something as generic as retail sales. It doesn't say what they're selling. So if somebody wants to develop a property and put on a commercial building for retail sales purposes, it doesn't matter if they're selling marijuana or clothing. So it's a more complex issue, but I guess to answer your question, I believe we have an effective moratorium until we receive a 2/3 town meeting vote that allows a zoning amendment to allow marijuana sales. So I guess I would not support that moratorium at this point.
At this point, I'd like to call on our communication director, Jerry. We received some emails with questions, and I want to give the wider public an opportunity to get their questions in as well, and we'll come back to you.
Thanks, Steve. We did receive 2 questions by email for each of you to answer, and they both actually have to do with immigration. So the first question is, Police Chief O'Loughlin has stated that the policy of the Milford Police is to contact ICE when they bring in undocumented immigrants who have committed a very serious offense. Do you agree with this position, and will you support the police chief, his stand on holding illegal immigrants on ICE detainer warrants?
Bill?
The policy of the police chief and our police department to cooperate with our federal government is one I stand by. I don't know if there's an easier way to say that. I was on the Board of Selectmen when we first brought in ICE. I'm mindful of the fact that this community, and including my grandparents, were immigrants. The question of documentation, or legal versus illegal, is one that can have significant secondary effects, tertiary effects, hospitals, school systems, and assimilation that are unique to people who want to, or are forced to almost live in an underground economy. Those are very unique, but the short answer is yes, I support the chief in his efforts to work with our federal government, our federal agencies, and within the law, if they're issued a detainer and they can hold, then I would support the chief.
John?
I agree. I would and I do support the police departments and the police chief's efforts. I've had many long conversations with Chief O'Loughlin about this topic, and I think Bill actually touched on the more important aspects that as a town we have to manage, which are the secondary effects. It's certainly caused many housing problems that were recognized well over a decade ago, where the Board of Health passed Article 37, the occupancy bylaw. We've been able to manage and mitigate and remediate a lot of the effects of the illegal housing, the overcrowding, and likewise at the school system. Our school committee has done a great job of working with the administration to manage the effects, which are when we have a student, we have to educate them. We have a lot of ELL challenges, but I think as a community, we're dealing with it very effectively. I think we're really at the forefront of any community in Massachusetts with dealing with these effects. But yes, again, I do support the police chief in his efforts and policies with regard to this.
Jerry, do we have another?
I have just one more. This is a second question that came in from someone else by email, and that is, do you support making Milford a sanctuary community?
No. If that means that we are not going to cooperate with our federal officials, I say no. And as a matter of fact, my discussions with the chief have sometimes led them to understand from immigrant communities themselves, the small populations within our community, where there are people within our community that they don't want as part of their community. So other immigrants working with our police department about immigrants who are bad people, terrorizing them. I fully support working with our federal agencies. I would continue to do that, and I support the chief in doing that. If Sanctuary City means that we stop doing that, I am not in support of it. Thank you.
John?
The easy answer is I actually fully agree with Mr. Buckley on this issue. In government, we need to all work together, and yeah, to not support the federal standards and work with almost as a, I don't know what the right phrasing is, but yes, I do not, no, I do not support the sanctuary cities.
Hey, any other questions from folks in the room now? Okay. In front here, Jerry?
I have one more question. It deals with the Board of Selectmen and the fact that most members are part-time, employed at part-time elsewhere, and some of them are employed full-time elsewhere. Now, Mr. Buckley, you took great pains tonight in questioning Mr. Erickson's possible conflicts were he to be elected to the Board of Selectmen, but you never told us where you work. And when you look at the town report and you look at services purchased, products purchased, you're able to determine whether or not someone working for the town is in conflict. But we really don't know where you work. I'm sure you're gainfully employed, but it would be nice to know.
I am gainfully employed, thankfully. I work at Bose Corporation.
Any, right over here?
My name is Bill Sanborn. I just have a quick question regarding the new regional transit authority that started up last fall. I know that there was a lot of effort done by the state to get that project started, and then just recently there was some question as to whether the funding was going to get cut. And so I just wanted to get a sense from both candidates as to A, do you support the regional transit authority? And B, will you do what you need to do to continue funding that going forward?
With regard to the regional transit authority, I think we already have. We have to recognize Mr. Rhodes tonight for all of his hard work in developing that. As far as supporting it going forward, at this point, I do support it for a second year. It's about a $250,000 cost to the town. We receive around $125,000 from the state, and we receive a Chenal grant that last year was for $75,000, and this year should be slightly under that. So, given the relative success of this system, given the infancy of it, I think we owe it to ourselves to support it again this year, and then to assess going forward. It's it's certainly an expense to our taxpayers and our residents, but it's also a benefit. And I think everything in life and in government and in finance is about balance, and I think that this effort, deserves support for at least another year, and then we can continue to assess.
Bill?
Thank you. Good question. I would also support a second year. I don't think there's anything on the horizon that tells us state funds are going to get cut. I sit on the MWRTA board, and they've committed to me the exact amount of funds that they committed last year. I think they're committed for the long haul. Of course, everything is subject to funding from the state, but I don't hear of anything in the pipeline that says that those dollars are going to get cut. And with the Shinnah grant, I think the impact to the taxpayer is relatively small. And I've always said this, that some of the things that we do, while I'm fiscally conservative and have fought for positions that were fiscally conservative over the years, you're not always going to measure the benefits of quality of life to some people on a spreadsheet. So I would support a second-year pilot, and I think our funds are solid this year.
Are there any further questions?
I have one.
Over here.
As I understand it, and if I'm wrong, so you can tell me, but just recently, in the last year or two, they passed the thing where town employees were evaluated. And first of all, John, were you in favor of that? Annually?
To date, I have never received a formal written evaluation in my capacity as a town employee.
Wow.
That's in process at this time.
Are you in favor of it?
Of course I'm in favor of being evaluated,
Okay,
yes.
good. How about town employees annually?
I thought that was the question.
Well, that's department heads is my understanding, not all employees.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Well, then who gets evaluated, I guess?
Well, yes, I would be in favor of it, but really the evaluation with town employees, at least in my department, is ongoing. It's a completely interactive dynamic. We have such a small department that it's day to day, but in some of the larger departments, police, fire, of course, yes, I would absolutely support annual evaluations.
Okay.
Bill?
Yeah, I think I was part of that process, I'm going to say, to make sure that at least at a department head level, and most certainly to the town administrator, that goals were established. More importantly than the evaluation itself is that goals were established and agreed upon ahead of time. And then it was less subjective a review process where everybody could evaluate that town administrator or department head against those goals. I think all employees are entitled to those. It's the world in which I live in. It's probably the world in which many of you live in, where you receive evaluations. I think it's beneficial to the employees. I think the employees are entitled to that. But we just got the camel's nose under the tent, so to speak, with administrators. It hasn't been something that's been very popular up to us recently, but I think we can get there. It just would take some time.
Back here.
Hi, the questions for both candidates. Back to the budget. We just did finalize the Woodland School project, and we now have the Middle School East building that we don't know what to do with. And we are talking about the roads. So my question is, seeing that our budget for now is okay, do you think that having some cuts, or are there going to be taxes, or in order for the town not to have an emergency where we actually have to, get money from outside?
Another good question. I'm not sure people are aware of our stabilization fund and the extent to which our stabilization fund acts like a rainy day fund. We have over $25 million in that stabilization fund. It is intended to help us survive through any type of immediate need, and is also a lot of long-term planning going into that fund. We're as healthy and healthier than most communities in the Commonwealth for that reason. Our Moody's Investor Service ratings to our fiscal budget and to our bottom line and to our bond ratings is as high as anybody is in the state with a AA rating. So I'm very proud of that. It's because of that financial fiscal oversight. And it wasn't popular when I first got in, I'm going to tell you that. not spending to the levy limit, the maximum capacity that the state allows at 2.5%, was something I had to fight for through a lot of folks and different teams to make sure we weren't taxing the maximum that we could, even though we didn't need it. There were other cases where we're not spending to the maximum levy capacity. I know this is complex buzzwords and terms of art, but we're allowed to spend to 2.5. We're well below that. We should be $3 million below that with this year's budget. On top of our stabilization fund, we're as healthy and the envy of many communities around us. There are communities around us that have to go for override simply to take an administrator and take them from half-time to full-time. So put that on balance where we are. It's a good question, and I thank you for asking it, because I'm very proud of where we are today.
John?
Yeah, again, Bill did sum up our finances very well. We are $3.2 million under the levy capacity. We are the envy of many communities around here. But as I mentioned earlier, everything is about balance. And the one thing that I think has been neglected, and I've seen it firsthand with the school committee, is that in part, we are in such good financial shape at the expense of our school system. We are so far below net school spending from the state average and from every community surrounding us that it's really embarrassing on some levels. I think we need to take a closer look at what we're putting into our schools and our future while maintaining a sense of fiscal conservatism. But there is some expense to being in such good financial shape. And again, we have to look at the balance of what we want to accomplish in our community, how much we want to spend, how much we want to invest, and in what areas.
Bill?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, it shouldn't be lost on anybody that part of the investment that people make in the community is the $60 million for a school building for our staff and our students. And as Marie pointed out, the former representative who worked very hard on that funding formula, we paid 50% of that. So our taxpayers are putting a great deal of dollars into our school systems and into our kids' future and our staff to make sure that environment is right for learning. If there's another plan, I'd like to hear it because right now I can tell you our taxpayers have funded this to the tune of some $30 million that the new building we just opened up. So I want to say to the taxpayers, thank you.
Unless someone has a burning question. Mike? We'll give you 30 seconds, Mike.
Thank you. I believe I heard both of you say that you would be in favor of employee evaluations, but I believe you both stopped short of indicating that you would be in favor of salary increases merit-based on those evaluations, as opposed to just, you've been here another year, you get this amount of money. Could you comment on that, please?
I think the dynamics of being a public employee, you just can't accomplish merit-based raises. We have the personnel board who evaluates the positions, and salaries are set by position and the responsibilities that go along with that position. It doesn't allow for merit-based compensation. I'm unique. I'm the only building commissioner in town, but I may be a teacher, I may be a firefighter, and inherently some seem to have a better performance than others, but our system, I don't believe, allows for that.
Oh, yeah, I have an answer to that. Mike, did you want to hear from me as well?
If you can.
Okay. Merit-based system, meritocracy is certainly something that I live through every day, and where all the employees are based, their salaries are based on merit. I just think, Mike, that in a real-world environment within a municipality, so many of the employees are union-based, and those are subject to collective bargaining agreements. And so I'm not sure exactly how you would accomplish that and bargain that with the unions. The vast majority of employees are protected and compensated based on union collective bargaining agreements.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up.
May I just follow up? So what That being the case, I'm sorry. That being the case, what would be the purpose of the evaluations?
Oh, I think that the purpose of the evaluation would be to, outline successes and possible deficiencies. The one challenge in these evaluations that I didn't point out earlier is it's easy for me to evaluate as a department head someone within my department. It's very difficult for anyone in the town to evaluate me as the building commissioner when they don't know the function of my job, or whether that be the town administrator, town council, police chief, fire chief. In private industry, most often your boss knows how to perform your function, but it's drastically different when you talk about municipal structure, especially between department heads and town officials.
Mike? I think the benefit of the evaluations are to set goals, as I said before, and to make sure that employee knows, at least with periodic feedback, how they're doing and when adjustments can be made, so that they're just simply not surprised some point later in the year. I think so. The evaluations and the goal setting, and ultimately that delivery of that evaluation system, whether it's linked to compensation or not, is still a good idea.
Mike, we need to close this off now. I want to thank everybody for coming, and I especially noticed there's a young lady over here and some young men over at that table there, and it's really nice to see some young people seeing what town government is like. That's a fundamental part of our mission, is to get citizens involved in their town, and your presence here really speaks to that. Okay? Let me just say, if you still have questions, you can contact the candidates individually. Their contact is on our website, Citizens for Milford.
And please remember to vote Tuesday, April 4th.